Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're putting on our detective hats, you could say. We're diving into a smartphone that's pretty new, maybe even just coming soon, the Oppo F29 Pro 5G. Lots of buzz around this one. So we've got this online source, right? Packed with specs, details. Our job is to sift through it, find the key info, maybe some surprises. Basically, we want to get you up to speed quickly, cut through all the tech jargon.
Absolutely. And, with new tech drops, it's always a challenge. These spec sheets can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's actually accurate, what matters, it's tough. And this one's interesting timing-wise. It's June 24th, 2025 today. The source says announced and released this month. But then its status is coming soon. So, yeah, bit confusing right off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like we're solving a little mystery already. And just for context, the price mentioned is around 400 Australian dollars, though the source does say that price might vary depending on the specific version, the variant. Okay, so let's get into the Oppo F29 Pro 5G itself, starting with the physical stuff, how it looks and feels. Dimensions are listed as 163.6 by 75.5 by 8 millimeters, weights 192 grams. Materials, this is interesting. Plastic front, it says, but then a glass back. And that back glass is Gorilla Glass Victus, apparently, with an aluminum frame.
Right, and those material choices, they tell a story, don't they? It's about balancing cost with a premium feel. That aluminum frame, that adds good rigidity, makes it feel solid. And Gorilla Glass Victus on the back, that's a big plus for durability. It's much tougher than standard glass against scratches, drops. So even with the plastic front, maybe to save cost, they're aiming for something that feels robust day to day.
And speaking of robust, you mentioned durability. The source flags an IP53 rating. What does that mean, practically speaking?
IP53. Okay, so that means it's dust resistant and splash resistant. Keyword is splash. Getting caught in light rain, probably fine. Accidentally splash some water on it, should be okay. But definitely don't take it swimming. It's not waterproof. It also mentions dual SIM support, nano SIM, dual standby, and the colors sound quite vivid, lava red and ocean blue.
Okay, nice. So from the outside, let's move to what you're actually looking at the display. That's your main interaction point, right? It's reportedly a 6.64-inch AMOLED capacitive touchscreen. Resolution is 1080 by 2400 pixels, standard stuff, 16 million colors.
Yeah, and that AMOLED screen, it's not just jargon. It genuinely makes a difference to the experience. You get those really vibrant colors, deep, true blacks, because the pixels can switch off individually. Great contrast. So photos, videos, they just pop more. Even reading text can feel a bit easier on the eyes sometimes. It adds a premium touch.
Makes sense. Okay, physicals covered. Let's talk about the engine. What's making this thing tick? Operating system is Android 14. Chipset, the MediaTek Dimensity 8200. That's a 4-nanometer chip, which, usually means good things for power and efficiency, more modern tech. But yeah, and here's where our deep dive gets really interesting. The source's detailed specs list the GPU as Adreno 730. Well, hold on. Adreno 730, that immediately jumps out as, well, incorrect. It's a major red flag about the source, frankly. Adreno 730 is Qualcomm's GPU, usually paired with their Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. The MediaTek Dimensity 8200 almost always comes with a Mali G610 MC6 GPU. That's a completely different graphics processor. The performance difference in games, apps, it could be huge. It's a fundamental mismatch. This really suggests a potential copy-paste error or just bad data in the source. Oh, okay. So that's a pretty big inconsistency. And it's not the only one, apparently. The summary at the top mentions 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. But you scroll down to the detailed memory section, and it specifically says 6 GB of RAM.
Exactly. And again, that's not a small difference for the user. 6 GB versus 8 GB, let alone 12 GB. That significantly impacts multitasking, how smoothly apps run, especially demanding ones. If you're expecting 8 or 12 based on the headline, getting 6 would feel like a definite downgrade. These aren't just typos. They're conflicting details about core components. It really hammers home why you need to be careful with single sources online. Cross-referencing is key.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on, but keeping that skepticism in mind. Cameras, always a big deal for people. The main setup is listed as a triple camera, but the specs only detail 2 lenses, 50 megapixels and 2 megapixels. Features like LED flash, HDR, panorama are mentioned. Video-wise, it can do 4K at 30 frames per second. Then there's the selfie camera, single 20MP front camera. It has dual LED flash, which is unusual. And it also does 4K at 30ps video plus 1080p at 30 with gyro EIS stabilization.
Okay, so the camera specs, if accurate, sound pretty decent, especially the video capabilities. Having 4K on both front and back is definitely a strong point. Good for vloggers, content creators, or just capturing high-res memories. That 50MP main sensor should give you good detail, especially in good light. HDR helps with those tricky, bright, sky-dark foreground shots. And gyro EIS on the front camera. That's electronic image stabilization. It means smoother selfie videos, less shaky footage when you're walking and talking, like a built-in mini stabilizer.
Good point about the stabilization. Now, what about keeping this thing running all day? Battery life. And guess what? Another discrepancy pops up in our source material. The summary mentions a 4,400 mAh LiPo battery. Okay.
Right.
But then the detailed battery section lower down specifies a 5,000 mAh Li-ion battery, different capacity, different type even. Charging speed is listed consistently, though. 33W wired charging.
Another one. Okay, well, that 4,400 versus 5,000 milliliter difference, that's quite significant for daily use. 5,000 milliliter is generally a solid capacity, should easily get most people through a full day, maybe more. 4,400 milliliter is decent, but heavy users might be looking for a charger by late afternoon. The LiPo versus Li-ion distinction is less critical for the end user. They're both common lithium-based chemistries, but the capacity difference is key. And 33W charging, it's not blazing fast compared to some rivals, but it's respectable. It'll give you a decent power boost pretty quickly, like during a lunch break. Much better than older, slower charging.
Right, good to know. Okay, let's round out the specs with connectivity and other features. Network support looks comprehensive. 2G, 3G, 4G LTE, and 5G, both SA and NSA types of 5G, so it should be future-proof there. Wireless, Wi-Fi up to 802.11ac, Wi-Fi 5, dual band, Wi-Fi direct hotspot. Bluetooth is 5.1 with A2DP and LE. Location uses GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, BDS, and has NFC, which is great for mobile payments, things it apparently doesn't have. FM radio, an infrared port. Some people miss those. Charging and data port is USB Type-C, as expected. Sensors include an under-display fingerprint scanner, optical type, accelerometer, gyro, proximity, compass. Standard suite, really.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid list for connectivity. The comprehensive 5G is important. NFC is super convenient for tap and pay. And that under-display fingerprint sensor adds to the modern feel. It's sleek, keeps the design clean. The lack of FM radio or IR blaster might disappoint a few, but they're increasingly niche features these days. Overall, it seems well connected.
Okay, now let's talk about the rating our source gave this phone. An overall rating of 9 out of 10. But what's really odd is that it gets 9 out of 10 across every single category. Design, display, camera, features, connectivity, usability, performance, battery. Uniformly 9s.
Yeah, that does seem a bit overly neat, doesn't it? When you see perfect or near perfect scores across the board like that, especially on a source that already has some clear factual inconsistencies we flagged, it makes you question the depth of the evaluation. Was it really tested thoroughly in all these areas, or is it more of a, optimistic placeholder rating? As a critical consumer, you should probably take those uniform high scores with a grain of salt. Look for reviews that offer more nuance, maybe point out a weakness or two. Nothing's perfect, right?
Right, exactly. It feels a bit too good to be true, or at least too simple. Now, another important point about this source, it lists headings for comparisons. Like, it has a heading, Oppo F29 Pro 5G versus Oppo F30 Pro 5G camera specs, rumored, and another, camera performance between the Oppo F29 Pro 5G and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Chipset comparisons, too. But, and this is crucial, the source doesn't actually provide any of that comparative data. It's just the headings. No analysis, no details underneath.
So it sets up the expectation of a comparison but doesn't deliver. That's unhelpful, to say the least.
Yeah, exactly. So bringing this all together, what does this deep dive mean for you, the listener, someone maybe thinking about this phone or just trying to stay informed?
Well, synthesizing everything, the Oppo F29 Pro 5G looks like it could be a strong mid-range contender on paper. You've got that nice AMOLED display, seemingly capable cameras with 4K video front and back, full 5G NFC, decent build materials like the Gorilla Glass Victus, and potentially a large battery if that 5,000 mAh number is the correct one. But the big takeaway from this exercise really is the importance of critical reading. We found those significant inconsistencies, the GPU, the RAM options, the battery capacity within the same source document.
It really highlights how careful you need to be, doesn't it? You can't just take the first spec sheet you find as gospel.
Precisely. Which leads to a final thought, really, a question for you listening. Given these, maybe minor, but definitely significant inconsistencies we found just by digging into one detailed source, how does this change how you might approach researching your next big tech purchase online? What extra steps might you take now? What other questions would you ask? Which other sources would you absolutely need to check before trusting the specs and making a decision?
That's a great question to ponder. Definitely something to think about next time you're browsing for new gear. Thank you for joining us on this slightly confusing but revealing deep dive into the Oppo F29 Pro 5G. We hope it was useful, and we encourage you to keep digging.